All right, welcome everyone to another edition of the Raw Deal Roundtable. Got some new guests tonight. We got George with us as usual. We've got Kanter back with us tonight. Joining us is Ponder or John, and then we've got the Game Interferes or Anthony or the Midwest mid player up in the corner there. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, good.
Doing good. Wife is away. Cleared the schedule.
But not on time.
No, no, you know,
Never on time.
fashionably late.
little milestone, little milestone tonight. I am undefeated against Zenda's Visionary and BWO.
Oh, because he
How'd you do it, George? Tell us your secret.
I didn't bend to play at the time he wanted to play because I gave him 7 other times, and then inflexibility resulted in the win. Perseverance. That's what it is.
persevered.
Sham of a victory.
A real quack.
I'm only going along with this because having a top 16 really, lowers the bar for myself to getting in top cut. So I'm fine with him joining and then dropping.
Took one for the team. Took one for the team.
I appreciate
Oh, we got to
that.
make top cut somehow.
Right.
I need it.
So Brett Ponder with us tonight, so we could talk a little bit about his classic experience and the rules guru that he is. So Ponder, how did you get your start, or what got you into like the rules aspect of Raw Deal to get you where you are today?
Well, there's a reasonable chance I've been playing longer than 99% of people. My friend Mike back in high school picked up the game within a week of its release and brought some decks back from his local store, handed me a couple of them. My first 2 decks, as I recall, were Jericho and Kane. And this was in August 2000, the month the game came out. My first real major memory was at the what is now the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, playing Raw Deal in the lobby before Unforgiven 2000, which was the pay-per-view in September. So I've been pouring money into this game ever since. I try not to think about how much money that is, but it's been quite a lot.
Hey, at least it wasn't drugs.
That's what I always say.
Or
It's called cardboard
that
crack for a reason.
Yeah, RG kid. It's the famous story. We were in TV class, and he leans over to me. He goes, "All you have to do is buy a starter deck." And then, $10,000 later in high school, you're just knee deep in it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget him saying that. So I know.
Did you play in any big
I might have
competitive
been close
events?
with you on this. Sorry, Joe.
Ponder, were you pretty competitive? Did you go to the events or did you mostly like tabletop casual play?
I'll be honest, it was mostly casual play in the local store, which is Alternate Universes over in Holmes, which is about 5-10 minutes away from my parents' house. I got to a major tournament at Wizard World sometime in the middle of the game's run. I don't know exactly when, but I know that Team Angle was out at the time, so a couple of years in. But yeah, mostly casual play. Went back and forth with a few people at AU in terms of who would be the best player in the store, but never really got much further than that. It's in high school when you don't get a car until late junior year. There's not a whole lot of traveling going on, and In terms of getting into the wider game, I don't exactly remember when or how I found TCO, but I know it was before it was .NET. It was still TCO.ca at that point. Um, I kept up with the game throughout Classic, and through Revolution. God help us all. And my last major memory, the only other time I can remember really going farther afield for a tournament other than that Wizard World, was just after the game had functionally ended. There was a draft in Richmond where we drafted every set that had ever been released, with the exception of like the battle bag and all of that stuff, because can't really draft sets like
Yeah.
that. But that was just a really cool experience to be able to sit down and start with a pack of Premier and go through the entirety of the game.
Interesting.
When you say Wizard World, was it Wizard World East in
Yeah, this was over with
Philly?
Philly.
Yeah, Philly.
Now, in terms of rule stuff, I was generally kind of the rules guy at my local store just because nobody else had the patience for it. So that helped a lot. But since I was on the forum and I had already been doing that locally, as questions came up that I was pretty sure I could answer, I'd just chime in here and there and see if I could kind of help make things easier and get people responses a little faster. And it just kind of went from there. Uh, After the classic period ended, I started playing up at the Encounter, which is the local store in Allentown. It's about an hour away from here. And that is where I kind of unofficially started with playtesting because BP, Crasher, and a few of the people from New York would all come to Allentown, and since they were on the development and playtesting team, they would bring their stuff with, and I would kind of get a chance to see things a little bit behind the curtain and help in there. After that, a friend of mine who is on the Discord as Akari, it's also named John, he had moved out to Phoenix, so I went to visit him in 2017. So it happened to be right around the time that the Adam Kreitz Memorial Tournament was going on in LA, and I think it was the last ACMT. So we decided Phoenix to LA is not really that far, and when are we going to have another chance to go to a major tournament on the West Coast? So we just drove out there, and we met Creed and Tony Vella and Douchebag and a couple of other people. And we just expressed interest in formally joining the PT team because we were already functionally playtesters anyway, just unofficially. So when I got back from LA and Phoenix, I finalized joining the team. I was on the team from. They had just finished playtesting Virtual 8A at that point, so for a couple of sets. And then in 2019, Creed announced his temporary retirement, and when he handed the team over to Eric, they asked me to join the development team as of Virtual 10. And then I joined as a moderator for the Rules Forum in December of 2019. And then in May of 2020, David decided to step down as the rules manager, and he kind of picked me out of the crowd and said that he thought I would be the right person to take over. And much to everyone's dismay, I said yes.
Not to our dismay. You must be regretting this decision significantly.
Oh no, I get to hold it over everybody's heads. This works out fine for me.
Yes. So he didn't like talk to you beforehand. He's just like, "You're it, John. You're going."
Well, we had kind of been talking just in terms of, you know, how the rules would play out for upcoming cards that we were playtesting in the development forum. So he could see me kind of working through the same process that he would work through. And between that and my work in the rules forum as a moderator, he suggested that I would be I had the right, mindset for parsing things and processing how to, uh, find the right precedent and go through the stages of figuring out what you're supposed to do in any given situation.
Seems like you made a pretty good decision.
I certainly hope so. There are times when I'm not entirely sure.
Well, like, so one thing I love about the rules of the game, and I think maybe it's something you could tell us if what you like about it is, it's almost a game within the game. Like there's Rodiel playing the game, but what I always loved, because I tried to be the rules guy, in my locals, and um, there's so much to figure out, and understanding it. I always felt like, hey, just help me think a little bit more clear. But B, it was kind of fun. Like it's the mechanics of it all, right? It's the gameplay of it all. I think that was the first time I ever thought there, like, what really goes into making a game, all these conscious decisions, or maybe they miss something. Not,
Well,
yeah. But it's interesting. So I don't know if you feel that way as well.
I will say on the subject of conscious decisions, we try to be a little bit more conscious these days than in the classic period.
Yeah, I was speaking
Uh,
to classic
yeah.
specifically.
Creed will sometimes tell some stories about his interactions with Baron and with the rules team of the day, because he was two rules managers ago.
Mhm.
I think he was the last rules manager of the classic period. So he has a lot of stories of Baron deciding what he wanted a card to do and then basically making the rules jump through hoops to fit that.
Mhm.
That's
That's
why things like Heat being a subtype and only being relevant to half of the hybrid is because there was a misprint and it was printed on both halves of one hybrid card.
really,
So
was it revolving
it's,
takedown, was it?
yes. And that is a nightmare and I hate that. But
That's funny.
yeah, the thing about the rules is 99% of the rules questions somebody has, you can answer by taking a close look at the wording
Mhm.
and taking a close look at the timing breakdown
Yep.
and seeing how they line up.
Oh, I
Mhm.
thought you were going to say they could figure it out by actually reading the whole card.
Well, that is
Oh,
the
I mean,
third
that's
piece of
the
the
close look
puzzle.
at the wording. I mean,
Who
No.
in their right mind would do such a thing?
This is the wrong group for that, Joe.
Read the
we're
room,
talking about
man.
people in
Read
the
the
right
room.
mind, and you're asking me?
Was this all just like a big setup for Ponder to come over here and slam us?
Yeah.
Listen, in my head, I read the whole card. All right, in my head, I read it.
Did you though?
I think so.
No, no, seriously. Reading the card, explaining the card, 99% of the time it's true. There are some cards that are just written poorly, and we do try to go back and errata those, or add something to the Omni to clarify. But 99% of the time, the card does what it says it does. We just have to take the time to think through what is it actually saying.
Yeah, the nice part of the virtual era too is you can revise and errata things, quickly, and you don't have to worry about ruining, the value of, like cards and things like reprinting and stuff like that.
Yeah, at this point, sorry, if you sent your cards out to NPC or something like that, and just spend a little money on it, and we have to revise the card, well, print out a sticker and put it over top of the card and just add it to your next order.
Sharpies
Or
work good too.
I apologize for wasting your nickel.
that that did get me into a little trouble at Worlds when I got Shenanigans as Jericho. It-
I will
but that one's on me.
I will acknowledge that I am in a not dissimilar boat. Um, a little bit different, but when I went to the Battle of the Berg, the virtual tournament in Pittsburgh a couple years back, I built Arn Anderson because, of course, I did, and I had everything planned and everything was ready. except that in my mind, I had included a card that didn't exist yet. So when I got there, I had Legendary Defense and Managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan, which at that point was not Superstar specific, and I couldn't use it.
Yep.
But we had already designed, if you listen to me, you go to the top, which makes it Superstar specific for anybody in the Heenan family.
Mm.
So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, he can just get that because it's specific, but it wasn't.
I remember watching Kanter's World game and like hearing it in real time. Him like, well, you can't shenanigans me, and then I'm like, yeah, you can't shenanigans him, and I'm like shuffling through my cards because I have a Sexy Beast deck put together, and I'm like, no, he's right, and I'm reading the card, and I'm like, what is going on?
Like, it was so interesting because I found out that moment. So I'm reading the card and I'm just like, and it doesn't matter either way because I wasn't blocking shenanigans in any capacity. I wasn't running old school wrestling. Um, but that was a real time realization there, which,
Isn't it wild that no one shenanigans you the whole tournament until
yeah,
the finals, though? That's
yeah,
wild.
So,
semis.
for some context, can you explain? I don't quite know exactly what's going on. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
What happened?
So, in the semis of 2023 Worlds, I was playing Jagger and I was Jericho. And I guess up until that point, at one point, Save Us Y2 or dot Y2 stated on it that your opponent cannot play backstage shenanigans on him. And so I was under that assumption the entire time. In fact, like felt confident to reveal everything, like had a little extra, juice in me going into each match. And then in the semifinals, Jagger dropped shenanigans on me, at which point, I retorted, you can't do that. And when I hovered over the card on Octagon, there was just like this real time realization of like, oh no,
That doesn't say that.
like, I think I'm in a lot of trouble here. So like, you guys know how the rest of the game went. For those who don't, I think first turn, second turn, I got absolutely mollywopped, didn't play a card. And
You too, huh?
and yeah, it was against his rattlesnake.
Yep.
And it was brutal. And I guess that was just a precursor of what was to come. So it was an
Looking
ominous
through
vibe.
my archaic cards here, I had a full foil set of Sexy Beast cards, but looking through the pre-match, I had to reprint Save Us as the only non-foil because I had to order a reprint of it to change the wording.
What? I mean, John, any context on that? Do you know why that text got removed? Was it a mistake? Was it just something they decided not to give him anymore?
If I'm perfectly honest, I do not recall. I can try to find it. When was that changed?
I think it was the revisions before World, so maybe 2022. What's funny is I think that I got it updated because after I found out and I didn't want to see it because mine is updated.
Yeah, mine's updated now. It's the only non-foil.
Oh, I got it foiled because I'm an idiot.
Everything else was foil, but that one I just reordered. I threw it on the end of a random random order. Man, I miss playing cards. Look at these sleeves, man. Look at these Jericho sleeves. Just doesn't get better. Doesn't get better than.
I agree. He's a good superstar.
So
So
Anthony,
I don't see that change. Okay, that must have been revised in 2021. So
Oops,
why
just
was
missed
that
it by
changed?
2 years.
just 2 years.
I don't know what file I got, guys. I think
I mean,
these guys set me up. George set me up.
Unfortunately, we don't have Hog Trail here. It was his suggestion.
We were
to revise
very
that card.
new. We were very new to virtual when me and Kanter joined Worlds last year. We were the only two in our group to join, and I also got shafted because I didn't read ahead. We were in like V4 when Worlds started.
you
Maybe.
weren't
Something
the
like that.
only two.
What's that? Oh,
You-
Joe. Joe, you had a knowledge of virtual though.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So
You taught us
we're
how to
nearly
play on
two.
Octagon, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
So
Joe taught us.
someone had
you
to.
guys can blame Joe for us being on Octagon. So that's on Joe. Anything you want to bring up, blame him for our presence. But yeah, I wish I would have read ahead because Terry Funk could have cleaned some houses, man. But I didn't know about this is my hometown, and I got your town against Kyle O'Reilly, and then that was the demise. I think I had 15 foreign objects and first blood in my, or I didn't have first blood, but I had like 15 foreign objects in my ring by the end of that game. So hard times, hard times.
No, that's Dusty Rhodes.
So
I was scared of that Funk deck.
it's
It
I
was
remember
good.
telling people I did not want to see it.
It was good.
then it got changed afterwards.
Hey,
Too good,
gotta do
some say.
something.
Why did it get changed, Ponder? Who suggested that change, Ponder?
I think, Ponder was my first Octagon, my first world opponent, I think.
So let's see. Sorry, I'm still living in this year's revisions, which you haven't seen yet.
Oh man.
So
Come on, you can tell us what's happening to Viscera. Let's go. Let's hear it.
What's the, what's the boost he's getting?
He can't be.
Okay, I see the change. I can't remember who suggested it because I'm just seeing the list of all changes here.
Mm.
He
But
he was like one of the only ones that modified maneuvers to make them foreign object that didn't have the clause that they didn't
yes,
affect stipulations. Because every
Well,
other superstar has it. Yeah.
I remember looking at Terry Funk's cards, and I'm like, this cannot be right. This is like too good to be true. You're
Yeah.
telling me because you're right. The majority of other things, it'll say they're considered this for your non-stipulation effects, or cards are
Right.
considered this for your non-whatever. And I'm reading, I'm like,
You can play
no,
two
no,
cards a turn and they're both
Yeah.
foreign
No.
objects.
that was an oversight. And when we finally got to see it in action, we're like, oh yeah, we were supposed to fix that, weren't we?
And what happens if you actually end up stopping him? You mill 3
On the classics, yeah.
on the classics.
Yeah. Which I definitely wasn't even. I did not pay attention enough to his cards. Like I definitely wasn't having my opponents do that. I was just so like
First
just
blood. Let's
focused
go.
on getting foreign objects in ring. Like I don't care if you're milling or not. So yeah.
You're a nice guy that makes people bleed.
So Anthony, why don't you talk about your classic or pre-virtual experience? Do you have much of one, or?
Yeah. I mean, I started playing like a local card shop. I was actually a kid on my baseball team. I was like a sleepover one time, and I went, and he knew I liked wrestling, so he showed me this game, raw deal cards. I don't know. He let me use one of his decks. I have no recollection of who it was, but I know he kept beating the shit out of me. Like I didn't get a card off. So very similar. Fast forward 20 years, it's the same thing like playing Zenda, right? You're not gonna hit a card, but he was dead man. He was dead man, and he just beat me. But I liked wrestling, so I'm like, oh, these cards are cool. These superstars are cool. So me and another buddy of mine, we walked up to the card shop, and I remember buying a Kurt Angle deck, and my buddy bought an RVD deck. And we both opened them, and we're looking at all the cards. It's all new to us, and I was so mad that mine had 3 action cards, and my friends came with a trademark finisher. I had no idea that like superstars were like pre-packaged. I'm just like, oh my god, my luck. Like I get these things and you get a 5-star frog splash. So the same day, I think my buddy bought RVD and Big Show, and I ended up buying Kurt Angle and Booker T. And because Booker T came with maneuvers, and I liked his specifics better, I built Booker T was the first deck that I built, and I combined the good. I didn't know what good cards were, but I took the good cards out of Kurt Angle and put them in Booker T. And a random kid at the card shop helped me do that because he had some experience with it. And he, like, the guy, my buddy Ryan, he hates Raw Deal with a passion. Nowadays, he hasn't played in like 15 years, but he's every time I bring it up, he's like, "Oh, you're an idiot! Like that's so dumb." But he's my daughter's godfather, and I met him at the card shop, and he helped me make a Booker T deck. Like that's how I met my daughter's godfather.
That's pretty good.
It's crazy. But no, I played for a while. That was my birthday and Christmas gift. Like I would get like a booster box for Christmas, booster box for my birthday, and then I was like working in a restaurant at like 14 years old, so I had no bills and this money, working a couple nights a week, and I spent every penny I had on rodeo cards, every penny I had. And I remember some older guys like he sold me a paid laid maid for $40, like when it came out, right? And everyone's like, oh, he ripped you off, and now it's like, dude, now I get $100 for that card. So it's one of the funny things that he thought he conned me all those years ago because I paid $40 for a PLM, and now it's worth more, and the card's not even in print. So I played a while, but there was a big gap, and unfortunately, I got roped back in during COVID and meeting all of you jerks, and the rest is history.
You're welcome.
Wasn't
I
it
could have
so?
saved. I could have saved a lot of time, money, and energy if I didn't accept the invite to a random Raw Deal group.
Let's be real. Let's be real. You were spending if you weren't spending money on this, you were just spending it on something else.
Well, I mean, sure.
Isn't it amazing?
Watches.
Like when you would pick up a starter and you'd open it, you'd see the superstar card, and then you'd like fan it out. This is all before like we knew about comic images and spoilers and all that stuff. And you would just open it and you would see the 3 cards, and like that was such a big or impactful moment because you're like, all right, this is what I have to work with. This is what makes me me, right? And it's my favorite thing about Raw Deal. It's like all these other games, it's cool, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, all this stuff, really cool. But like, you have an identity in Raw Deal, and it's one of my favorite things is when you open that deck, you got to like see what you had to work with, and like what you said about Angle, you're like, oh, the actions. But even
I didn't know what an action meant. I just knew
Right.
my buddy pulled like a 5-star frog splash man, and I'm pulling Kurt Angle with a microphone. I'm like, boo.
Yeah. But like, as wrestling fans, you open it.
Integrity, I don't
and
need that.
Haven't had it in 20 years. No, I'm kidding. With you're a wrestling fan with Angle. You see the 3 eyes. You open it up and you fan out the 3 eyes, and you're like, wow, like only I have the 3 eyes, just like Kurt Angle. It's so cool. I love it.
But I mean, full circle, like at the end of Classic, when we were all playing on Zoom and stuff, Kurt Angle was my favorite deck to use. I had a First Blood Kurt Angle deck, and it was awesome. It probably could still be very competitive today because he can pack face and heel cards. That's why people don't give him support. They think face and heel is Kurt Angle support. But no, I ended up loving that deck. What was initially a disappointment buying a Kurt Angle starter deck ended up being one of my favorite Classic decks of all time.
Helps to get medals the next set.
Yeah, it helps to play Kurt Angle in 2023 Classic as opposed to 2000.
Didn't it come out in the same? Oh, it came out in Backlash. It came out in Backlash. Medals.
Kurt Angle was fully loaded, so I don't.
No, he's saying
I think
medals.
might have been. I think medals might have been in. That might have been in Backlash.
It was Backlash
'Cause-
because first to tap was Mania.
No. Wait. So Kurt Angle came out fully loaded, and his 2 ultra rares were Olympic Slam and It's True. So medals must have came out in Backlash.
Yeah, I started playing in Mania is when I got introduced to the game. Mania on the cusp of SummerSlam, which then I was super into the game because my favorite wrestler of all time is Ric Flair. So when I saw Ric Flair was coming out with a deck, and I still think that's one of my favorite face cards ever. Ric Flair's original face card is just so clean. All his cards just look very clean to me, and I love the style of them. So I was hooked when they had Ric Flair in the game. Back when you can win a game with chops.
and removing people's fortitude. That's
No, I didn't even care about that. I was just chopping. No sidewalks, no
there's
defense.
nice guy Anthony. Not
Yeah,
even
man,
removing
just
people's moves.
nope, just chopping.
Stopping it. That Midwest niceness.
Quick note: we are ultimately correct on when all of those angle cards came out. Conveniently, if you go to TCO and you go to the Superstar Strategy Guide, all of them say what set the card came out in.
Conveniently, it's already written out for you.
Did any of you guys
Involved reading.
actively did any of you guys trade cards on TCO back in the day? Because I definitely
Yes.
did. I
Yep.
gave strangers my address as a child.
Yeah.
It was a lot of card games I would trade. You know, there would be trading groups online, and you would
Yeah.
trade.
I remember my
Creed. I remember Antigoth.
Yeah, I don't remember any names, but I remember trading I got some me and my buddies, we got like rock cards. I remember trading I had extra Ric Flair cards that I traded for a mankind set with some random stranger on the internet. Yeah.
I think I might have traded once or twice, but I mostly bought cards from people on TCO.
So Ponder, going back to the rule stuff, like what is your process when you get a rules question that is like kind of obscure or not like in reading the card, you know, you read the card, you look at how it's worded, but it's still not quite, you know, like answering the question you're being asked.
I'll generalize a little bit first.
Okay.
For any question, my first thought is, do I need to answer this, or is this something that I'm sure somebody else can answer? Because if other people feel empowered to give an answer, then they're also thinking through the questions. They're also thinking through how to come to the correct rules decision. And that just helps everybody because it's not always, okay, is Ponder at work? Is he asleep? How long is it going to be before he can answer this question? So a lot of questions get cleaned up that way. But if there's something after that that I need to speak to, I can take that reply and jump off from there, either to handle something trickier within that question or a corner case that they might not have thought of, or in some cases just tell Hog that he's wrong.
One of my favorites.
I love that.
Yeah.
If it's something that I look at and I think I probably should just take that straight up, it's because I think it's not something that's going to be immediately obvious. So there are, as I alluded to briefly earlier, two ports of call. The first is the timing breakdown. Most questions can be answered through looking at the rules text and looking at the timing breakdown. If those don't seem like enough to answer something, the next two places to look are the Omni and the rules forum on TCO, because that is a repository of thousands of questions going back well over a decade at this point, and either the question has already been answered or something very like it has already been answered in most cases. So if you know what you're searching for, you can generally find something that is close enough to be applicable. Between those, that answers most rules questions. If I go through all of that, I comb through the rules forum, I look at the Omni, I get nothing, and we're in genuinely new territory, then it's time to kind of sit down with it and start parsing through, first off, is this worded correctly? Is it working the way it's supposed to? And a lot of times, especially if it's a virtual card, I will figure out who designed the card and get a sense of intent. Because if the card's intent is there, but it falls prey to we know what it does syndrome, then maybe what's needed isn't a rules clarification, but a wording clarification. And then we start looking at errata or revision to make the card do what it's supposed to do. But if there's nothing else to draw on, sometimes you just have to sit down and make a completely new ruling based on what the card says it does and how you can word things to make it, to get it to that point where it does what it needs to do. One that tends to come up is Fortitude Surge, which is a nightmare card that should never have existed in its current form. Sorry.
Almost just asked you about it too.
I have said this before. I've had this conversation with multiple people in various circumstances. Fortitude Surge is an action that's printed with a red border. It was printed before put this card into play was a thing, but in a perfect world where I was designing the game from scratch, it would be an action that would be put into play in response to your Fortitude being modified. And then you could pop it as an ace or pop it from ringside to clear the effect. Because nothing about the way it works or the way it should work requires it to be a reversal. It's the same thing with Witty Retort. That also shouldn't be a reversal. It should be an action that gets put into play.
Is there anything stopping you guys from saying, let's correct it now? Because you've blanked other cards, like cards that you're just like, yeah, this shouldn't be part of it. We blank it or we errata it. So who's like saying keep it as it is and
make it a throwback?
Yeah. At the moment, we have the entire dev team can weigh in on these things. The earliest conversations tend to be between me, Creed, Hog, and BP.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a number of other people on the dev team, Mike, Bob, several others, all of whom have opportunity to chime in and say, here's something that I see that's a problem. Here's a suggestion for how to fix it. Let's have a discussion about whether it needs to be fixed at all. Maybe it's just somebody's feeling salty that day.
Yeah.
Well, that was a genuine oversight. That was not just somebody feeling salty. I want to be clear.
I'm kidding. It was just funny because I caught you at the end of that game, and then I think it got revised 4 months later.
Yeah, it was.
That's my impact on Raw Deal history.
Where we didn't see it until we saw it, and then we're like, "Oh yeah, we forgot to include that phrase and jump, didn't we?"
I mean, that's part of the fact. There's 440 some superstars, and
right.
Not everyone builds decks the same way, and people like to use different cards. So it's never gonna be perfect testing.
Yeah, at this point in Octagon right now, there are 7,271 cards in Raw Deal. We're going to screw something up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Best we can do is say, oh yeah, we screwed that up. Let's fix it.
I can't believe you didn't account for breather hold. Oh.
I
thought you were going to say Bree. I thought you were going to say Bree Bella there.
No.
I know we just derailed you there, but you were talking about like a card like Fortitude Surge and then getting together with everybody on the dev team. But I want to hear the rest of it.
Absolutely. Well, the problem with Fortitude Surge's most recent revision, because we've tried this a few different times, a few different ways to get it down to the way we want it to work, is the wording before the most recent one. I could just envision scenarios where you would have people trying to literally shout over each other to say, I'm going to remove Fortitude Surge from your ringside pile. I'm going to activate it before you do that. And that is no bueno. I am not letting games come down to who's loudest and who's fastest.
But I'd win.
Can I make a note
Exactly.
that comes into play with $1 Million Man? I just want to make a note. I could just because I have a joke about this with RG Kid about how I was going to say everything faster than him. So that's still in play with one superstar. I just want to throw that out there.
Please send me a DM about how that interaction actually works, because I might want to take a look at that.
I will.
Wait till after the
Continue.
tournament.
Yeah,
please.
no. Continue.
Yeah. And going back to waiting until after the tournament, that conversation happened in the rules forum, obviously during Worlds, but it was presented without context. It was just a question about the card itself. So, for reasons unbeknownst to me, and I don't understand because I had Fortitude Surge in my own deck, I wasn't quite twigging to the fact that it was in relation to something that had happened in a Worlds game. So when I was like, okay, we're not having this argument anymore, I'm going to make it so that Fortitude Surge can't be removed by your opponent's effects. The intention there was to shut off the argument by making sure that if it got to ringside, you would be able to use the effect. But there were decks that were built around being able to remove it from ringside before that happened. And it wasn't really fair of me to revise the card with immediate intent after decks were locked for Worlds, but before the tournament was over. So after some time to think about it, I figured out a kind of a midway point between where the card was and where the card ended up as a temporary ruling, and I put the actual errata of the card into abeyance until after Worlds ended, because I didn't want my ruling to negatively impact people who had designed around the card the way it had been worded. But then Worlds ended, and I'm like, okay, no, door slams now. It's going to work the right way. Until I figure out a better way for it to work, because that card is a moving target and will continue to be the bane of my existence for another 20 years.
So
Well, go ahead, George.
just so John, like you had, I know sometimes there's definitely some reluctance there of completely changing a classic card. I mean, I know you've done it, but I think the gist I get out of it is you get to it to a certain point. I think first of all, it was like finally time for it to just be blanked, right? So, but to what you're envisioning with Fortitude Surge, why not? Has there been talks of just creating it the way that you are proposing as an action and just making it a throwback? I think
The
I just
trick,
got a spoiler. I think I just got a spoiler,
You,
guys.
you'd have to blank the
trick,
first one though. Like you'd have to
yeah,
get rid
the
of the
trick
first
of
one.
making it. Now, granted, we've done that before. We've made throwback Inferno match blank, but OG Inferno match not blank.
Mm-hmm.
And throwback Premier WWF Superstar works, and the OG is blank.
Yeah.
So there is precedent for doing something like that if we wanted to. The thing is, there is a strong pressure, like personally, for cards that were printed by CI to work the way they work unless they absolutely positively are negative play experiences.
Yeah.
And Fortitude Surge isn't really a negative play experience, it is a negative rules manager experience. So, in a perfect world where I go back in time and I get to argue with Baron until I'm blue in the face, maybe I could conceivably change that card. As it stands, at some point, who knows? Maybe we decide we'll just go back to the beginning and make all of these cards available in a virtual form. Because there was a time early in the run of virtual, especially when we still had Carte Blanche and Cat One and Vela cards all selling the physical cards, making sure that there is still a physical market for them. There was a strong fight against changing the physical cards. We didn't want anybody showing up to a tournament thinking their deck worked one way and then finding out that it didn't. In much the same way with Fortitude Surge, I didn't want somebody building their deck thinking it worked one way and suddenly it didn't. Now, 2024, God, I'm old. It's a little bit different. There are not a lot of people buying physical Comic Images cards who don't know that we're revising things on the fly to make sure that everything works. And those people that are probably don't give a crap what we say anyway. So it's a little different today than it might have been in Virtual 1, 2, 3, 4, or back at the time, Revo 4 and 5. But all of the things being equal, I would probably make Fortitude Surge an action, but there's a lot of inertia behind people understanding it as being a reversal. And what makes sense to me as the rules manager doesn't necessarily make sense to somebody who is just looking at the card and going, well, this stops this thing, doesn't it?
So I kind of want to go back to the origins of Fortitude Surge because that's what I find so interesting about this. Like I said, I was a big rules guy, and I would play in tournaments at neutral grounds, pretty much every time there's an opportunity to. And I remember Fortitude Surge just kind of working the way that Baron intended it to, because Baron would be at these events and no one questioned how it was worked. Now, so my point in it all is, was there an evolution? Did everything change because there was an evolution of the way that like people understood how raw deal wording was so codified by how it was worded, right? Because raw deal is a game where wording matters immensely. So you read the card as it lies, right? And everyone's interpretation of it kind of changed as opposed to the card itself. Because again, people would pop fans love or play get crowd support. You'd throw out Surge, you'd pop it and reverse their maneuver. And this was in every tournament I went to.
One thing I would say is this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about in Baron's day, very much the rules being made to fit the cards. That is the way he designed the game, and to him that made perfect sense. Now, I'm a rules guy, so I very much look at it the other way around, and the card should be made to fit the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, in some cases, and I will admit, I only met Baron once in his life, and that was at Wizard World, the tournament that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He happened to be at that tournament, but other than that, I didn't know him except as the guy who created the game and a presence on the CI website. But from conversations I've had with people who did know him and people who knew how he worked, when Baron said something worked a certain way, it worked that way because he said it.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
that is 100%
the
true.
rules functioned around that statement. But I don't want to get into a situation where, as the rules manager, I'm doing that. I want there to be an explicable, repeatable explanation and reason for everything that happens. And if there isn't, either a rule has to be added that is clear and doesn't change anything else, or the card needs to be changed so that it fits the rules as written. And that's one of the things with Fortitude Surge. It is, as I mentioned with it and Witty Retort, it is one of the two corner cases of a reversal that doesn't reverse a card or ace.
Mm-hmm.
It specifically reverses a condition. There might be one or two others, but the fact that it reverses a condition makes it very weird and very uncomfortable in the rules. And if you were to make it an action where the trigger of putting it into play is the condition that would allow you to play the reversal version, you have that same effect, but with something that makes sense within the rules context. Because put effects based on trigger conditions is an easily understandable thing, whereas playing a reversal to a non-card really isn't.
And just so anyone, maybe anyone who's watching, needs to understand, ultimately the issue with Fortitude Surge as it stood is that it was eating up the one reversal response, correct?
There's an element of it eating up the one reversal response, though, again, the shenanigans fix to Fortitude Surge, back on Fans Love Shenanigans, was to explicitly make it your response the first time.
Hmm.
You played it in response to the card that generated the first Fortitude punch. And then it was your response, and that was it. You could pop it at that point so you could overturn a reversal, or you could just start taking the damage from that maneuver, or that action if it's an action that caused the Fortitude plunge, and use it at a later date to play a reversal from hand or to overturn a reversal from arsenal. But just in terms of the way the rules work and the way I kind of conceive them, reversals you explicitly know when they're played, because there's a specific point in the timing breakdown where a reversal is played. And the thing that makes Fort Surge and Witty Retort so weird is because they're not played within a timing breakdown. They create one of their own in response to a non-breakdown effect.
Gotcha. So where does something like, I guess, understanding where the shenanigans had it, where does it come into play that, that it kind of doesn't do the intent of the card? And maybe that's just because that's what Baron told me and or told the crowd or whatever. Um, but like it feels like the intent of the card is to get yourself out of a plunge situation without having to eat the maneuver, right? And maybe I'm not correct there. Maybe the dev team feels differently, but I'm curious: is that something that you feel like is the purpose of the card?
I feel like there's a balance issue at play here where most decks that have plunge effects,
Hmm.
or enough plunge effects for it to matter,
Hmm.
have those plunge effects because that is their way of getting on board. In the same way the Lone Warrior's backstage card is his way of getting on board, or the same way that now Heat decks its crown jewel. And giving decks Fortitude Surge as an option to completely shut that off basically negates plunge as a meaningful way to interact in the game. It's a negative play experience for the player who's playing plunge. So the trade-off that we decided to make was, in order to help facilitate that interaction, we would give the player who is playing plunge that first one free, because now Fortitude Surge is a response to your card. In exchange, we gave the Fortitude Surge player something back by letting him pop it from ringside to get a second negation of plunge off the same Fortitude Surge. So it was a rebalancing of the card in order to help facilitate a healthier environment, but we weren't just going to make the card strictly weaker. We took something away and we gave something else at the same time.
Which makes sense, right? You let your opponent get on board, but you have the opportunity to then reverse immediately the same card from Arsenal. So you're not going to you can reverse it on 1 instead of 20, and then you can still pop it again. So your opponent's on board, you're not killed in one turn.
Yeah. Or if you prefer, since it's in play, you can just take it through the arsenal how it comes, but then their next two attempts at plunging you can reverse from hand.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off. Fortitude Surge is a bit different of a card than it was when it was first printed, in large part because we felt that being able to play a reversal to a condition isn't great. We didn't like that. And honestly, all things being equal, I would personally want to change Witty Retort as well, but that is not something we're currently doing. But since we were changing Fortitude Surge in the way that we were, the plan was we have to take something away to make this card function the way we need it to function from the one perspective. We'll give something back to make sure that it is still worth packing.
Yeah, I like that explanation. That makes sense.
It makes sense. I agree. It just unfortunately, right, doesn't work in every scenario. Not that everything is going to. Not that I'm making this definitely not going to make this a rant fest. I built thinking I built a heat viscera, right? And I can maneuver of doom somebody for 25 damage plunged, right?
How do you
Yes,
feel
an
about yourself?
example, but
How do you feel
but
about yourself after that, George?
I'm telling you, it's
Are
not a great
you, are
feeling.
you a respectable man? No, no, you're not.
There's a reason why I
Your
don't
wife
play
should
this
leave
deck
you.
anymore.
Your wife should take the kids and get the hell out.
Oh, that's a little much.
Does she know that you do that though? I just need to.
I'm gonna text her. Do you know what your husband's doing?
She does not. She does not know. But to that specific example, right? Again, it's niche, John. But someone eating 25, 27 damage, whatever amount it came out to, is tough, right? That's like so. It's like if it's an 8 damage card plunge, sure. 28 damage, 25 damage. It gets a little bit tougher.
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be tough situations in most matchups.
If Hog was here, he'd
one of
just say they can still volley it.
Yes. My point was going to be, under the right circumstances, Baron Corbin can throw Precision Haymaker at 3 Fortitude.
Right.
And keep throwing it. So there are going to be some decks that can just do things that seem unfair. The best thing we can do as designers, developers, and a rules team is try to find those cases and determine, are they unfair? Do they just feel bad? Or are there tools that people aren't considering? Because if there are tools that people aren't considering, the thing to do is to remind people that they exist. If it's really legitimately unfair, if there's something broken, we have to fix it. And in the middle, if it's feels bad, maybe we don't necessarily have to fix it. Maybe we design a new card that helps lessen the impact, or we revise a card that can kind of soften the blow, or in certain cases, we just revise the problem card and have people figure out, okay, well, what's the next best thing I can do with this deck? There's a lot of different levers that we can pull and different ways that we can tweak things. And sometimes we hit the wrong one and we have to go back or come up with another solution. But the fact that we have those different tools in the toolbox really helps, because sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, yeah, I can't volley this, but when's the last time you packed all talk, no action? When's the last time you packed rules? There's options there for things.
Let me tell you the last time I packed rules. I'm just kidding. But with rules, definitely our play group, a lot of people use rules.
I don't have enough time. It's past my bedtime to get a conversation about rules going.
Rules is one of the best cards in Raw Deal.
Shut up. Just shut up.
In the right deck, it is busted. And against the right deck, it is a coaster.
Mhm.
And that's one of the good things about rules and about a lot of cards that are bullets. They don't shoot everybody equally. So sometimes you're built for the right scenario, and sometimes you've built for something that's not going to show up.
Well,
See,
here's the thing about rules is
you have to play blue cards to care about it, and I haven't done that in a while. So
well, certainly that. But the thing about rules is it's nothing until it's everything, and that is why it is as good as it is. You know.
And that's one of the great things about this game. That's true of like 70 different cards.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think of the BWO deck reveals? Superstar reveals.
Strong. Some strong superstars, man. It's scary. I was like, is this a world tournament or what?
Right.
Kind of.
I mean, you got to think. I don't even know. I tried to put in my memory where I forgot about my week 1 opponent. I got smashed by Odor in a heat deck. All my favorite things right now. Just brutal. And I messaged Jake and I said, hey, you didn't have to tell me who people were. You just could have told me that mine wasn't good enough and to start over. Like, you didn't have to spoil anything, but you just could have said this is not going to cut it.
I mean, no spoilers. There's a real chance that nobody's deck is good enough against Odor.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I want to say in League and the BWOs and even Worlds, I want to say I'm normally like a 2-0 person, and then I get Odor or Jagger, and then my decline starts.
You figure out the key though. If you start 0-1, you get pared down, and then you can move
This is
your
gonna
way
be
up.
this is gonna be a new thing for me. I'm gonna enjoy this getting pared down. I'll see how the dice falls or the cards fall, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, right, it worked out for Hog because I mean, in the wheel he was 0-2, and then he made top cut.
Yeah.
Um, I think I mean, first of all, I like Bob's reveal show so much. I just think, I mean, kudos to him for taking the time and putting them together and playing them with the music and the cutouts and so forth. Like that Wolfpack one definitely made me laugh as he's like cropping pictures from different images to make one or whatever. But I, I felt like you just saw this wide array of superstars, and I thought it was actually pretty cool this time. Yes, you saw Visionary. Yes, you saw Jinder. Yes, you saw Bret Hart. Um, and even some others I saw and I thought, oh my god. But then you saw some other fun. I mean, I've never been so scared to see a David Otunga deck until I saw Debu tell me he's going to be David Otunga.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I told him this earlier today when I played him. I can't even fathom what you've put together for this. And I'm just gonna have to wait and see. But I liked the array of superstars that we saw during it. I mean, you're gonna get that with 30. I mean, when you don't get any duplicates, it's great. It's awesome. No diversity issues. Um and yeah, now it's just to see what types of builds, tend to are heavier in this tournament. What meta I guess is heavier in this tournament versus the last constructed one.
Yeah, I think the reveal shows are my favorite part of the event, more than the event itself sometimes. I just really enjoy them.
Just some of those entrance songs, right, Joe? Just even not truthfully, not to toot my own horn anyway, but during the world's reveal, you just heard Eric Bischoff's song, which I loved his entrance song, but just to hear "I'm Back" and it was just so good.
I mean, the world's reveal is great because you got to hear the Visionaries 3 times. That
Oh,
was awesome.
Not only 3 times, but it was 3 times in 4 people, I think.
4 times.
And there was one time
Well,
it was
because
just
Seth
Seth
Rollins,
Rollins.
Rollins.
Yeah.
But as someone that got, as soon as I saw who else was visionary, being Debu was one of them, myself and Crasher, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Don't need to worry anymore.
What am I doing here?
Tough to lose in the reveal, Anthony. Tough to lose in the reveal.
Yeah,
That's exactly what happened.
it immediately eliminated 2 people from the top cut, basically.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
We'll say that's one of the good things about the BWO. Nobody's eliminated on that basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. We had what?
Pack the visionaries out.
Was there 24 for Worlds? 24 or so, and we
Somewhere
had
around there.
3 of the same
Something like that.
superstars, and then you get a 30, and there's nobody that's the same. It's pretty good.
There's a
There almost
lot.
was, and it was almost mine. Crasher very nearly played Rhea Ripley as well.
Mhm.
But
There's a lot of new people, it seems like, joining the Discord, and a couple of new people in this tournament, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen them play, but it's cool to see new people. I don't know the guys like Brandon and Eugene. I give them so much credit for interpreting this game on the short time that they've been playing, and to play at the level they're now playing at. Because I played both of them, it seems like just a couple months ago, and it was like one of their first couple games. And to see where they're playing now is just wild, with the amount of cards, with the amount of meta and strategy that's gone into this. I'm overwhelmed when they post 3 spoilers. I'm like, what the heck are these cards? But these guys picked up the whole catalog in a matter of months.
Yeah, I played Eugenius.
If the guy, hopefully he watches this and takes some backfires out of his decks, okay?
Yeah, I watched him.
Backfire real good.
I played him
you're
Monday.
welcome for that being permanent, by the way.
What's that?
You're welcome for backfires being permanent, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
They could be active.
Could be.
No, I think Backfire is a good card. I like it. It has its place. But yeah,
It's good, right? Like backfire, having it permanent was needed, but
yeah.
No one complained, probably not about it as much, until like same thing with the world with Jinder, right? Like, how is this happening? Well, because when Jinder came out, Heat was not as strong as it is. So you've got the combination of stuff. So like backfire now, it's just like that final straw at the end of the game where you're like, ugh, it doesn't take up a spot. Here it comes again. They've already got fortitude because of Crown Jewel. They're not taking damage. It's just a lot going on. But without every inch of the support, no one cares about it.
And speaking of you're welcome, Crown Jewel is largely my fault as well. It had been my mission to get Heat back from the doldrums that it had been in to being a worthwhile mechanic again, and I think we might have pushed it just about as far as it can go. I don't think it needs anything else anymore.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. What do you guys? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well, it's funny. I remember Hog. I think during when you guys were playtesting, we were kind of just chatting, shooting the shit, and he was talking about Heat, and I remember being like, "Oh, you can like do whatever to Heat. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's not even a thought. Just if you can throw the world at it." I truly, I very much remember that conversation. Because I also thought it was more about like a play style thing too. For me, like certain people can bring out a fun play style of Heat, but like there was something about Heat that just didn't attract me as a player. Right now, winning does attract me, so maybe that's its thing.
It really comes down to what you said. Some of the people who got the boost from Heat, Crown Jewel just made them that much better, and maybe some of them a little bit too much, right? But we don't need to beat a dead horse here. I think we know who, and some of the people that are, even stronger. I think Evan said to me that Iron Sheik's probably going to get a revision because of it, because now that Overturn 2, for overturn reversals, obviously we don't know if that's official. I'm sure Jinder's going to get something. I'm sure, I don't think Snitsky's that bad, but I'm sure Snitsky, like all these guys that are Heat specific, might get something.
Let me tell you,
really all it is just take.
As good as Heat is, the last time I used Snitsky, I got barrel rolled by Jagger's First Blood Dean Malenko. So let's back off Snitsky and let's go for.
Come on, we're gonna really We're gonna
I,
really put Dean in the conversation with Snitsky.
I will say I don't think anything of Snitsky's directly is getting adjusted.
Yeah, Snitsky is fun. I'll tell you,
Snitsky's
Snitsky
fine. I
was
don't
my
think he's much of anything.
No, I just throw
Snitsky
out a
is
Heat person. I just throw a name of another Heat person.
yeah,
That's all.
But
yeah.
you are not wrong that there are some Heat decks that are going to need some adjustment on the basis of what's going on. But some decks are getting adjusted down, some decks are getting adjusted up in revisions.
That's
It's about cultivating a healthy metagame where as many superstars as possible are feasible. It's not just about finding the things that worked last time and saying not again.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the way stuff comes out too. Like last year's Worlds, you saw a ton of Blindside and stuff like that, and then this year you pivot. You got Heat coming out. Blindside is still really good, but
Mhm.
now and it also makes you think about packing other reversals. Like how often did you pack Chained Heat or when Hell freezes over and stuff previously? Which now is absolutely a question you ask yourself is, do I need to pack these type of cards?
I'll say it's been a few years since I packed Chained Heat regularly, but might not be the worst idea in the world.
I yesterday with Oder, he was surprised to see Chained Heat, and I had Chained Heat and Mickey James, but not that Mickey James needs Chained Heat anymore because of the overturn two for the change rate. But I thought, why not? And it'll grab a Heat card too. So,
Mhm.
but yeah. But I think you're right, John. It comes down to sometimes the way a card is worded, right? And I just kind of piggyback on a conversation you and I had, not that I expect you to remember, but a few months ago about heated exchange with Crime Time. Do you remember that convo? You don't
Uh,
have to. It's okay.
I remember
But
having it. I don't remember the contents of it. I'll put it that way.
yeah, I think it was about understanding the wording of um, being able to play an additional heat maneuver if you have four or more in your ringside. So if you play Davari, can you play a heat maneuver right after from ringside if you meet that criteria? And I just remember the conversation with Hug was like, no. And then talking with you, it's like, well, no, the card says this, yes. And then, shortly after Hog gave me the what you said is that this is what the card's supposed to do kind of thing. And but the
Hmm.
wording doesn't say that. And I think I remember getting the gist that that's probably going to change. So then I never moved forward with that build. And,
I
and
had
then
to
I think,
listen to this great idea, multiple text messages and phone calls about George's great idea, and I'm rolling my eyes so far in the back of my head, thinking, this is what you do with your life. You want to do this, and then someone played that deck recently.
and then somebody asked it and said it was okay. And I was like, this was supposed to change. I didn't build this deck because they told me it was going to change.
Yep, yep.
This is not a prediction. This is a spoiler. There is a Crime Time card in the revisions.
Oh, Brooklyn.
It's not that. I don't think that is the title of a Crime Time card, but
Nice.
So do you have your game scheduled, John, for BWO?
not fully scheduled. But Mike and I have been talking about it. It's probably happening sometime this Sunday, but obviously, slight time zone differences between Philadelphia and Scotland. So trying to
Just a
find the
little
right window is a little trickier than in some cases, but
Who
we'll
did
get it sorted out.
who did Mike pick? Who's Mike's superstar?
I don't remember.
I can't open up the Discord while on video without
Exactly.
screwing something up. I feel like so, but I know he announced it ahead of time too, and I just can't remember who it is.
Yeah, and that's a problem I have cheese for brains right now because for the past several months, my team at work has been less than half its full size. So, but Raw Deal is a wonderful escape from all of that nonsense, isn't it?
John, can I get
Uh,
a live rules question?
You can ask a live rules question. Whether I
It's
can give you an answer quickly or not, we'll find out.
it's something that I've been afraid to ask you because I feel like it's a can of worms.
Oh, just
Here
It
we,
might
here
well
we
be.
go. Here we go.
Mike
It's
is
it's simple. It's simple. It's just the way that oversell is worded, right?
Mhm.
I know on the card it doesn't say it replaces the damage. I'm reading the Omnifax now and it says the card overturned per the text of oversell replaced the pending damage. Now, I find that odd because oversell explicitly doesn't state that. Now maybe
Mhm.
it can just state that and then everything is hunky dory. But if that's the case, doesn't replacing damage change how something like maybe an RMS maneuver uh, is uh, is handled, in which it would do double damage? Effectively, I'm saying like I think there's potential in the way that it's worded that double damage could be in play. Taking it for the maneuvers damage and then taking it because oversell states you have to overturn the amount of damage. Does that make sense?
The if I am remembering correctly, and again, just the way I process rules questions is very different from the way Nate would process them. He was very much he had everything in his head and would just fire off answers. I take my time. I do a lot of research. Uh, uh, Data and research is my job in the real world for what the real world is.
Yeah,
So I take a lot of time. I do a lot of cross-referencing. I make sure that I'm not missing something in a precedent that's been posted somewhere else before answering anything too complicated. But as I recall, what is going on here with oversell is that it is a replacement effect. It's not, it doesn't function the same way. Replacement effects work on RMS cards because you're not modifying the card. It's just a function of the way replacement effects work that they
oh,
can
it's
do their
replacing the
thing.
damage,
Yeah.
which at
It
that point is
replaces Yeah, it replaces the damage with the overturn on oversell. And the wording of oversell isn't wonderful for explaining that. But as I recall, what's going on is that it is a replacement effect, and that's why you can still oversell an RMS card and not have to also take the damage.
gotcha.
Mike is Finn Balor. I found it.
There we go, that's right.
that. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I knew there was something about Mike's deck where I'm like, in theory, I should be trying to figure out the best angle to attack the deck, but I'm playing Rhea Ripley. I'm just going to do the same thing.
Yep.
And whichever version of Finn Balor I'm facing, there's only so much I can do because the deck's locked.
Does he have the ability?
Locked
I actually don't know
in the
how.
cell.
I don't know how Balor works. Does Balor have the ability to be? It's the backstages, right, that make him two different
Yeah,
functionality.
the jacket or demon.
Is
Yeah.
it close
Impactful.
enough? What is it? Yeah, right. Is it possible that like it doesn't? You can build your deck one way to utilize both, or do you have to kind of gear it a certain way?
You can you reveal one of them,
hmm
and then the other one cannot be revealed. Because each of them says when the other one is revealed, hide it. So you can
Yeah,
either reveal the jacket or the demon. I don't think you can switch, but if you built your deck in such a way that you could run either, in much the same way you can build R-Truth to be usually face but sometimes heal,
Right.
or you can build Alistair Black to usually start face cheater but sometimes start heal fan favorite. You can probably very easily build a Finn Balor deck that is usually Demon Finn but sometimes Leather Jacket if you think that's more beneficial.
I have Demon Finn, and he's built just to be Demon Finn. But yeah,
First
I don't know.
blood
He
demon
he
thing.
seems cool. Is it First Blood Demon?
no, it's not.
I
It's Last
believed it,
Blood
Joe.
Demon.
Joe, I believed it.
I just assume any deck Anthony builds is first iteration is First Blood.
No. Well, when I do look for superstars, I do tend to see like I like to build based on maneuver type or like textbook. When textbook came out, I read through every single superstar and said, okay, who can search for maneuvers, who can take maneuvers back from ringside, because textbook's trouble is getting on the board, in my opinion.
Yep.
Because you can't pack a card like dirty, you know. So you can't, obviously, if you have the textbook backstage. So that's like, sometimes I'll do that. Like, I want to build a cell deck. Who doesn't need recursion from cards? I want to build a First Blood deck. Who can do this? Who can manipulate strikes well?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
George says, I want to build a heat deck, and then just spins a wheel and picks that superstar.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Does
Oh,
Doug-
I mean, obviously it came out, and that's 100%. And then, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that Anthony's fuel against heat, motivated me to find other people. So, I mean, Mr. Pay-per-view, Heat, it's with
It
Hidden
lost,
Dragon,
it
and
lost the cane.
you
Okay.
can't remove Maneuver of Doom from my ringside, and I can just wait to get to 8 and play. Yes, 100%.
Sometimes you don't get to 8 though, do you, George?
George's main technique is searches does not contain shuffle in. That way he doesn't even have to think about, recursion.
That's the problem with my decks in general. I feel like again, I have 100 decks built. A handful of them have recursion, but generally, I like to play quicker games. I would rather play 2-3 games in 2.5 hours than one game in 2.5 hours. So that's why I tend to go with decks with a win condition or Hell in a Cell, because I just want to play another game. So even my decks, I've learned, that don't have Hell in a Cell still don't have those recursion cards. Maybe they have Cavalry and 10th and 5th, but really that's it. Like, I do not build my decks to just withstand. There's a couple of them. I have some, stall decks. The Rock, Hulk Hogan, a couple guys with massive recurring, but generally it's like, all right, let's do this. Let's play a couple games so we can get some different things going.
I'm hearing 2.5 hours and going amateurs.
Yeah,
I have
Yeah.
played a 4-hour game of Raw Deal before.
that's what I'm
What's
saying.
that?
Anthony,
I won't do it.
my question to you is, why do you hate Raw Deal so much? That's my question to
I
you.
won't do it.
I
Me,
love
you give
Raw
me those
Deal.
3-hour games. George, I know we've been in some 2.5-hour games before, and just by that end of
The problem is too, though, for me, is I have everything Mac and Apple products, so I run Parallel, and Parallel cannot keep up with a game that long. The trio tournament, I scooped at the end of the game. It was Rock versus Corey was the Rock. I was highlight. I was highlight of the night, and we both actually went thrust knee lifts, and we were playing for over 2.5 hours. I want to say it reached just about 3 hours, and my computer crashed. It just would not respond anymore. So I don't know if other people have that Octagon problem. I know I've asked in the threads before, but Parallel cannot support a 3-hour Raw Deal game. And there's nothing worse than having to say you quit the tournament game because your computer crapped out after 3 hours. There's no worse feeling.
I've had games end because my opponent's computer gave up.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's what happened to the 4-hour game. But there is one solution for that. Keep a Windows laptop.
You just gotta win
Yeah.
Worlds and buy it with Worlds money.
Yeah.
That's all $0 at that.
You know what it is? It's not even the money. It's just like the carrying it around.
Principle. Yeah.
It's the carrying it around, because I work so much on my laptop and on my desktop and stuff. And if I have a downtime, 10, 15 minute down, that's why I have it. I actually have the Parallel installed on my laptop instead of my desktop, so I can tweak at something at work, or I can look up something at work and at home if I, put the screen on. So I'd have to have that with me at all times, I feel like, which is a weird thing to say. Like, I need raw deal at my fingertips at all time.
I mean, I do kind of know what you mean. In order to make sure that I have what I need, both at my desktop and if I need to be somewhere else, I actually somehow still don't know how I managed to pull this off. I installed Octagon to my OneDrive, so it is the same installation played over the cloud, whether I'm playing it on my PC or on my laptop.
I was actually building a terminal server to try to get Octagon so people could play it from anywhere, but I have to do some more work on that.
Get to work, Joe. What are we doing here? We just wasted an hour and a half. Come on. Get to work.
I don't know SSL certs enough to get that running right away.
Well, go get a class.
I don't want to. I'm too old for that shit.
Fair.
All right. What do we think? Hour and a half?
We're at an hour and a half. I think that's pretty good.
Now, before I let everybody go, I didn't talk to anybody about spoilers, and Hogtrail's been dropping movie cards in the spoilers thread on Discord. But since I didn't talk to anybody about spoilers, I'm just going to give a couple of small nuggets of information.
Hey, we'll take it.
We
Love it.
currently have planned 3 non-superstar specific backstage cards,
Mm.
Ooh.
a new pre-match stipulation,
Ooh.
support for superstars, including but not limited to X-Pac, the Mystery Wrestler,
Oh, hell yes.
Okay. Needed.
the Godfather,
Oh God.
Then it's coming back.
So glad he retired.
and both Damian Sandow and Bob Backlund on the same card.
Let's
Wow.
go. Sandow
Nice.
support.
Okay. Very
I
cool.
mean, I'm not going to say that he doesn't need it, but I just got absolutely smoked by Debu's mystery wrestler earlier today.
Mystery Wrestler is not competitive by any means, highly competitive, but he's fun. That he can be 2 people is fun.
I mean, it was a very good deck. I mean, you could tell obviously the 50 cards is tough, right? But yeah, it still was just. I mean, he was Dude Love. Who was he? Dude Love, People's Champ, and The Rock, and was continuously throwing punch after punches after me till I finally had to just start eating one.
And I will say one more thing about the Mystery Wrestler. One of the reasons he is getting a new card is because he does not, by default, feel enough like a flavor of Mick Foley, and that is one of the things that one of these cards is intending to fix.
I like it.
Nice.
Do we know that he is Mick Foley? Isn't there like a
It's
Mr.
a
America
mystery.
thing going on here?
Mr. America, when's that Hogan remake coming out?
The carry the one. Never.
Good. Well, thanks for the spoilers.
Very
Or sorry, I should say information.
Yeah,
Thanks for the information.
I'm assuming it's all pending to subject to change at this point as well.
Everything is subject to change, but I'm fairly certain that the information I gave will still be true as of the release of the set. Now, what the cards themselves that I'm referring to actually say, who knows? But
Well, if there's a win condition, it's me and Jagger are going to be duking it out to see who could hit it first.
Well, he's gonna hit it. He's gonna hit it first, no doubt.
Yeah.
Hey, rude.
And we need at least 10 words in this Sandow card, all right? At least.
At least 10.
I mean, did Hog ask for permission to drop these spoilers before he did it?
technically.
He went on a rampage.
I mean, I think this is a perfect forum to see that stipulation with Anthony here.
I'll add one more piece of information because it was suggested. There is at least one card, because I'm not reading through everything we've got here. There is at least one card with the text, "You win the game via pinfall victory."
Oh
Yes. I
my
live for
gosh.
these moments.
Anthony's
Do you know
desperate.
do you know how cool it is to hit Doom? Do you know how cool? Have you experienced that in your life?
No, I have not hit
It's
Doom.
so fucking cool.
I hope this card says if you have 8 heat maneuvers in your ring, you win the game via pinfall.
I was gonna say something like,
No, I
if
will
you're
say this. I'm not trying to give away even more information. The condition does involve the number 8.
Whoa.
8 foreign
But it is not
objects
heat.
now.
I have you ever seen anyone hit I know me and Jagger went back and forth about like the superstar specific ones, but have you seen anyone hit the pin condition for the that's? What do you have to have 7 that's cards in your ring? That's something or
It was a
the
little
mid
more
match?
popular in Classic.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
believe I've ever seen that actually happen.
I hit the Divas one in Classic with Dude Love because I just kept picking them up from ringside all the run-ins. I hit that in Classic, but I've never hit the 30 Fortitude action.
It
So
must
the
have been it must have been popular at one point because I feel like Don't Be That it wouldn't have been a thing on Don't Be That Guy if it was not a popular thing, right?
Oh,
So
that was V1,
Exactly.
right? So
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it was a big thing in Classic, if I recall correctly. Towards the end of
I
Classic, it
wonder
got
with
really
who.
big.
I wonder with who. Tori Wilson, maybe something like that.
I will say this: the first BWO I ever joined, my first game was against Ponder playing an RTC deck that killed volley this and then used censorship to kill something else and beat me with Diva win condition.
My man.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
It was a 0 maneuver blue wave right to censor deck that censored volley this to go for the diva win condition. And there was no other way to win that deck. It either hit the diva condition or lost.
I like it. I've had an RTC set up since V1 and I love it.
All right, guys. Well, John, thanks for giving us that information and letting us pick your brain about the rules and your processes. It's quite interesting, to hear that type of information.
Absolutely. Anytime. Happy to come on. Happy to talk raw deal pretty much whenever.
And
Mhm.
any sort of belching, yelling, screaming, foot stomping you need about getting witty changed, I'm your man. You let me know when you want it, and I will be there because this I know it's existed, but this witty old school psych combo is driving me insane.
You don't even need to give him approval. He's just gonna go off
Yeah.
about it.
I just need some support will just, it just helps. I mean I'm gonna do it, but you know,
Great. We need another George rant.
See you in
we're
rant.
in BWO4, man. There's gonna be something.
Yeah. Thanks for the last minute stand-in, Anthony, here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks,
the invite.
Anthony.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt your bedtime two
I
hours
was in
ago.
bed. I was in bed.
I
And
figured
we
if
do
just George asked you, you wouldn't come, so I texted you as well.
he did ignore me. He did ignore my message.
Yeah.
But before we go, we do need to acknowledge Kanter putting together that Jericho display in the background with the radio booster pack he
It was
made
very good.
during the convo. But we need to call out the raw deal display in the back.
I like it.
Yeah.
It'll slowly grow over time with each passing roundtable.
Which each Jericho remake.
Oh god, I
Or
don't
as we
think we need
start
any more of those.
to unpack your office again, is that what we're?
Yeah, I need to like hang everything. Not super. It's the one time being a collector has really come back to screw me. I took down like 300 Funko Pops off my wall. Now I have to hang them back up or shelve them back up.
Yeah, I get the cubes, man. All my Funkos are in my basement in the cubes.
I took them out. I ain't no game. I'm no game stuff.
Joe has a real Joe. You have a real cool display, right, of the starters, and I know George does too.
Yeah,
I don't have a display of the starters. Joe
Yeah.
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a display. They're just kind of sitting on my dresser right now, but I have them all in like hard plastic cases.
Yeah.
I got
I think
one of those wall
I think I
mounts to
And
hang.
I got this guy too up here. Oops.
Yeah,
You
I have
can't
that
see
one.
it. It's got
yeah.
all the
My
Premier guys in it.
my sealed starters are sitting in one of the lunch boxes in the back over here. There's one of the like the Jericho. You probably can't see it. Jericho.
Blaze tin.
Jer- yeah, the tin. I had both tins, but yeah.
Oh, there we go. Can you see this?
Yeah,
Oh, how do you change the background?
it's a little blurry.
No blurry there. Whoa, whoa. There's my
George, I would love that Triple H Jericho tin.
What?
I would love that Triple H Jericho tin. Anthony, I can't believe I never told you that we had a bunch of Flair sign cards. Did we ever tell you that?
player signed cards.
Yeah, we have a Flair signed superstar card, SS2.
Oh, nice. I met Flair and got some cards signed from him.
Whatever you're
Oh,
doing, Anthony,
you
you
remember all
broke your camera,
Oops. Can you see me?
unfortunately.
You're back now.
So I only
Your camera went to sleep there instead of you for a while.
Yeah, I switched to the Logitech. The one, it's still like we haven't played on Zoom in what, a year at least. It's still set up like sideways on my desktop.
so I mean I only played Raw Deal during its live phase from Premiere to Backlash, and somehow I've still kept my 3 original starter boxes.
really
They're
cool.
crushed. They are not pretty, but I still have them. And then I know we said we were going to be done, and now we're talking this stuff. But yeah, my 7 starters
Really
Nice.
cool.
fit inside a Dangerous Alliance People's Team box perfectly.
Huh.
Nice.
And then I'll get on it. I'll stop after this. I'm just gonna find it. And then I mean I won't take the Undertaker one out of the box, but then I have the rest of the Undertakers.
Nice.
Except the oh no, I did get the Rumble pack. I forgot I did end up getting the Rumble pack. I think it was the BOD is like the one that's like, do I need to get it? Do I not? I don't know. We'll see.
Yes, you do.
Find me one. That's not
Need
$100.
to? No. Should? Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys.
I'm not about to run out front to grab them, but on the subject of sealed starters, I have the complete set of Great American Bash starters still sealed.
Nice.
I found a box. I found a box right before COVID in Rhode Island of starters that I picked up for I think $110, but then I resold it. But yeah, it's I know we're almost at. Hey, one more, John. Any backstage signatures or autograph sessions that you have that like maybe no one else does? BP surprised us with being one of the few with the Triple H sig. That was definitely a surprising news. Anything like that?
I don't have that, but I think the rarest one I have that came out during the game is a Batista.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
And then I have a couple of cards that were signed by people during the Tony era that are a bit interesting, but I can't remember what they are because they're all out front, and I haven't played with physical cards in 5 years, probably, at this point, with the exception of the deck that I printed out to go to Pittsburgh with.
I'm still trying to find somebody who has a Randy Orton besides Baron's Master Set, which I know who has Baron's Master Set, but I'm still trying to figure out who's got a Randy Orton out there.
Oh, never mind. I do remember the one odd one I have. If I am remembering correctly, I got from Tony Vela a Kevin Nash signed as Vinny Vegas signature. I think that's the one that's probably the rarest because I don't think he likes being reminded of that.
And an unofficial one I have that I picked up from someone who ran tournaments was I got a Dark Tower. I got a backstage signature signed by Baron and Mike Foley because I feel like it was hard to find both their signatures.
Mhm.
And it was a specific tournament at Dark Tower that I grabbed from somebody that I had seen plenty of Baron signatures, but I had not seen a Mike Foley one, and I thought having them both on the card was cool. So I probably overpaid for that one, but that's one that I'll keep because just
I
seems
have
to have a special feel to it.
I have one Baron signature, and it's on a women's championship belt.
Yeah,
Just
Barrett seemed to sign
random.
title belts a lot.
Yeah.
At one point I had two. I put one up as a tournament prize in Pittsburgh, but I don't remember which one I kept, but one signed card of Barron's, and it was maybe the light heavyweight title, something like that.
The amount of collections I've gone through with Baron's signature, he signed a lot of things, a lot of things.
We had the
I
tag
think I
belt,
might.
the ENC tag belts.
I mean, I had quite an array of stuff. I also have a ego boost signed by D'Lo, ready to go when you guys release him in V15. So,
You're missing a couple digits on the end there.
All right, guys, I think we need to. We
Let
should
me
wrap.
just say, please never, 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 never come out with a heat focused D'Lo, because George will lose his mind.
he didn't
Just
get
make
heat though. He can't
just
be.
make
He
a
can't get
heat
heat.
focused D'Lo who can't pat Crown Jewel, and you'll be okay.
Oh, very good.
Guys, I gotta run. It's been a
Yep.
pleasure.
All right, take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Sean.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.